All right, you guys will excuse me, I'm running a bit late and didn't have as much time to prepare as I would have liked because something ran a little long, but we're going to do this the best way that I can here. All right, let's start on the offensive end, shall we? So what I want to talk about a little bit is what the Knicks did to, I thought, successfully break down Miami's zone. And I thought they struggled to do that actually in game one more than they did in game two. And I think they found some solutions. And so I wanted to break down a few clips that I thought demonstrate that. And obviously field any questions about them as I go, as if I can figure out exactly how to kind of do a couple things at once here. All right, let's start here. So Miami actually started in a man. And after some successful Knicks possessions, they switched to a zone. They never went back to a man until very late in the game. They were in a zone for most of this game. And I want you to watch something specific about the way Miami positions itself in the zone. So this is theoretically a 2-3. What Miami has done kind of uniquely since they started playing this zone against the Knicks is they've almost been in formation in a 1-1-3. In the sense that in a kind of more traditional 2-3, Gabe Vincent would be somewhere like around here. The way Miami has been playing it is that whoever's guarding the ball, whatever side Brunson's on, has been on him, obviously. But then the supporting player on the top of the 2-3 is almost standing in the high post. And what that does, and I think the reason Miami's doing it this way, is first of all, Brunson's seeing bodies. And that's clearly an emphasis for Miami, is Brunson has to see bodies on top of the key. And so they're showing him two right away. It's not going to be an easy split. You're not going to get downhill easily. The second thing that it does is like the kind of the classic standard way to break a 2-3 zone, as anyone here who's played in high school knows, is to get the ball to the high post. Because generally, again, if Vincent's up here, that's the part of the floor that's open. And there are different ways 2-3s are configured. Syracuse plays it, like Syracuse, of course, the classic 2-3 team in college, at least as long as Jim Boeheim's been there. They have several different ways and different strategies in terms of who guards the high post. Some like the center to come up. Some like to guard it in the interior. And what this does is by positioning it here is that you can't really break it through the high post. It's not going to be easy because Vincent's going to pick up any flasher. And again, through all that, you're clogging in the middle. I thought in game one, Brunson ran into trouble over dribbling around this area trying to find the seam. When you guys can see it right here, where's the weakness in this configuration is it's going to be the opposite wing. And I think that's also intentional for Miami because especially with this starting lineup, there just isn't a truly threatening shooter from the wing other than the guy with the ball. Like no one you're really scared of shooting a three at a high clip other than the guy that you're zoning up on here. So I think it's all intentional. But what the Knicks figured out in this game in particular, and I'm going to show you several examples, is that if you do hit this wing and drive the gap, what happens if you're quick enough with it is that Max Strus is the only guy on the weak side and you have a wing and a corner. It almost creates a 2-on-1. And instead of dribbling around this area trying to find the seam, Brunson was a little more willing to just throw that ball quick to the wing and create that advantage by attacking the seam instead of, and RJ could have taken the shot, so could have Josh Hart. Whoever was in this position had this shot if they wanted it, but the Knicks were trying to find something better, and they found some success. So let's run this through, and you'll see what I mean. Hartenstein, again, instead of being at the high post, is going to screen to try to create. Again, you're forcing both defenders now onto Brunson because of this screen. So I thought it was smart to screen with the 5 all the way up top. And then you hit the seam. And now look at this. You can see it already developing, is that this is going to create a very simple 2-on-1 situation. RJ, with what DJ calls, right, the stampede dribble, he's moving on the catch to split that seam really quickly. That's a really smart adjustment. Could have hit Hart in the corner, but instead just goes right into his floater, and that's a good look. I'm going to pause there and see any questions on what I just said or configuration or anything. All right, cool. So I thought this was a really, really, really smart adjustment by the Knicks. I think they probably saw it on tape that it was something they could do better. And you saw it right there early with 8:04 left in the first quarter. And I'm going to flash forward if I can figure out how. Let's see. Okay. Next time I'll have these clip numbers like ready so I don't have to go through and find them, but I have the timestamps anyway, so I should be able to find them pretty quickly. All right, here we are. Okay. Miami in that same zone. Again, 5's coming to screen. And you see again the load up, right? Because of that screen, that's going to force Caleb Martin and Vincent now both on the same side of the floor. Ray has a question. Ray, what's up? We got Ray. Hold on, we got Ryan. I'll hit yours first, and then Ray. While you're thinking about it, So Ryan, do I think given iHeart's strengths in breaking the zone on offense, would you rather have him starting over Mitch? I don't really care who starts, to be honest with you. Because actually, as I'm saying it, like the high post passing is actually a little less valuable the way Miami's configuring this zone because it's not going to be easy for him to catch it there. So it's as you see in the clip that I'm running now, like Mitch screening has the same effect. Now we'll see in another clip that iHeart's ability to hit a floater is very, very, very valuable. But no, I think going with Mitch as your starter as he's been the whole year, and he's been effective in his offensive rebounding and his rim protection, all of that I think is still very valuable as a starter. And I think iHeart's contribution off the bench are obvious. So I don't think it's necessarily a starting or bench issue. And I think the way they attacked it really didn't differ that much based on who the center was. But it's a good question. Okay, that's Ryan. Kevin, that's a good question. Let me see. Hold on. Okay. Kevin asks, Schwinn had a great breakdown on Quickly's struggles. According to him, part of it stems from him not being aggressive on drives, wondering what he can do better and how he can exploit Miami's lack of an elite POA defender. I thought he found some aggression on drives in the fourth quarter. I'm not going to be talking about it here specifically, but I think him just being a bit more decisive. I thought on a couple of like he twice tried that little Euro step move, which one got an offensive foul, one was a turnover. I think more direct line would be helpful for him. Just being a bit more decisive, whether he's driving or shooting. Okay, Ray. In the previous clip, why not have Randall in the RJ position since he's a better threat to shoot the three and a stronger slasher? Instead, he's in the corner against three defenders. So we'll see a clip where Randall does, in fact, a couple of them, where he's actually in that wing position. I don't have a problem mixing it up, and you're not always going to configure the floor the same way, nor should you to give them the same look each time. And RJ has gotten really good at that stampede dribble of basically driving on the catch. And you see how easily he was able to split the seam there because of how good he accelerates on that type of play. So I don't have an issue having RJ on that wing spot at all. I think it's fine, and Randall had his opportunities as well. Gizzle, they seem to use that screen with JB going away from the two defenders a lot more as the game went on. Yes, it's a really good observation, Gizzle. I think that was, as we'll see here, if Brunson goes this way using the screen, Martin's also going to go that way. And that's, again, going to even further open up Josh Hart on this wing. So let's run this second play here as we're talking about it. Gizzle, it's a good question. All right. So running it through here, right? So now Mitch reverses the screen, but you have these two defenders committed. They're right next to each other. We talk about offensive spacing a lot. This is poor defensive spacing in a zone because you basically have two guys playing the same function. Look how open Josh Hart is. Now, early in the game, they passed up some opportunities to make this easy pass, and certainly in game one they did. And you can look at RJ here. RJ's like, he's pointing at him. He's like, throw this pass because, again, we got a 2-on-1 on Max Strus. Deliver the pass, and again, the stampede, right? He's moving already on the catch. He's not looking to shoot this three. He's looking to attack the seam. Now, I thought he probably could have made this pass. Josh Hart is if nothing else, a super aggressive driver, and I don't mind him going right at Bam. He actually hurt Bam a bit here with his knee. And doesn't make this layup, but it's the same theme, right? It's a good, hard, aggressive drive. Probably could have had the pass to RJ in the corner, but good offense. Like that's a look that I'm happy to generate. And look, credit to Bam Adebayo, who's a very good rim protector. But the same idea applied on that play as well. And you see them recognizing it, right? RJ pointing from the corner, saying that's the pass. Mitch screening away from the wing to try to draw the defenders even farther out. I think that's all intentional, all based on scout. Pause there, see if there's any other questions. RJ played Qs in college. I can't say I saw that. How'd he play? Maybe you can remind me because I have no recollection. It was a long time ago. All right, a third clip. Get out of this. So we're gonna go now to about 8:40 in the third. Here we are. All right. Okay. So the ball swung back to Brunson. Again, Mitch, the 5-man, coming up to screen. Now, to Ray's point, there's our man Julius Randle on the wing. Again, away, as you guys observed really smartly, away from the defenders. The screen is going away from that wing spot to draw Vincent, and Martin is all the way at the foul line here. So again, no high post availability necessarily, but the opening here is going to be Julius with Love guarding the weak side and RJ in that corner. Brunson takes one more dribble and draws Martin that extra step. You see you could spot his eyes are on Jalen Brunson. You could see Kevin Love pointing to Bam saying, hey, I might have to commit to Randle. Bam, you have to recover to RJ. So everyone recognizes the weak spot here. Miami's taking a gamble that this shot is one we're willing to give up, and we can scramble back if we need to, all in an effort to load up on Jalen Brunson. Brunson makes the swing. Now you see Love kind of showed high. Now he's going to try to recover, and Martin actually does a good job here of getting out quick and reading it. But now you have him on the move, right? It's not a stationary defender, and Randle at times we know frustrates us by holding the ball in these scenarios instead of perceiving and taking advantage of a moving defender. Well, here, one pivot, and now he's got him beat. Right? So it's again that wing attack. He's got Martin beat. Now he's going to draw all the help that Julius Randle always draws, almost gets all the way to the rim. Bam's got to step up on the drive. A beautiful dish to Mitchell Robinson. Right? So it's leading to good stuff, right? You're forcing the help by attacking that weak spot in the zone from the wing, breaking down the defense, whether you find your own shot, whether you find the guy down low. It's creating good stuff for the Knicks. I'll pause there again and see if... Okay, Ryan. Benjy, couldn't the Heat counter the away screen by pulling Bam middle of the three up to the screener level? Other backs in the zone can potentially cover cuts from the corner. Interesting. Let me take a look at that. Let's see if I can go back here. Okay. So I think, Ryan, what you're suggesting, let me get this play moving here, is having Bam come up to the level. As if he was guarding in a man, like if Mitch was his man, so like guarding the screen. Well, you could do that, but then your whole back line is open. So now you're basically coming out of your zone defense and you'd lose that rim protection. It's an interesting question because, and it's a good point. I think one of the reasons Miami is featuring this so heavily is because they know their best matchup on Julius is Bam. That would leave Kevin Love on Mitchell Robinson, and that would leave Kevin Love as the rim protector instead of Bam. And so by playing zone, you're not forcing Bam to guard Randle, and you're allowing your best rim protector to be around the rim. But once you bring Bam up and play it like a standard pick and roll, well, now you might be able to find other options to the rim where Kevin Love's the one that has to help down. Right? So I don't know if that really achieves the objectives of the zone that the Heat are trying to get out of it. I suppose that would be my answer. But it's a good question. Bam comes up. Vincent doesn't have to cheat over. Strus can sit on Hart. Right, he could again though, but if the Knicks do run any, like, so you're asking to basically run it as a man pick and roll. So you're basically coming out of the zone at that point. In other words, you just have Vincent on Brunson, Bam guarding Mitch. Well, now it's just a man defense. They don't really want to be in that scenario because at that point, basically what you'd have is Caleb Martin would be guarding Julius Randle and Love would be on Barrett, and you can exploit that in all other sorts of ways. You're not really playing a 2-3 zone at that. So whatever Miami wants to get out of it. Exactly, Ryan. You're just describing a man. Exactly. Okay. Cool. Let's hit the next clip. We're going to 3:30 in the third quarter. And I think it's helpful, even though some of these are going to show similar things happening. I think it's cool to see kind of the way the Knicks attack this and the different options that it opens up. What'll be interesting is to see if the Heat counter, if they're just kind of willing to play this game. All right, here we go. Let's get full screen. Okay. Sorry. Let's see. Okay. Same zone. Highsmith's in the game now. Martin's on the ball. Again, straight to that 5 screen. Now he's screening. Now, interesting, Hart thought that he might be able to get the slip pass here. So he kind of dropped into the zone. Maybe Brunson actually had it. But that's not the direction he goes. Both defenders are tight here. Now, he dribbled a bit towards Julius, and so you kind of lost the advantage a bit. And Hartenstein not screening, it's a bit of a different look here. Let's see what happens. Now, a classic part of a 2-3 zone, it's called a 2-3 bump. Syracuse made this very popular, is that the guy playing down low, in this case Kyle Lowry, shows to the ball when the swing pass is made, which again opens up that corner pass. Now, Josh Hart, I thought, did the wrong thing here. He's in a short corner. He should be at the three-point line. But he kind of backs out as the pass is coming. Julius sees it. Now Lowry has to recover, and Bam's going to have to help over. Now, again, Josh Hart could have shot this ball, but he's going to drive it. And look what this opens up. All the help sinks in. Brunson smartly, seeing Caleb Martin kind of sink into help to try to deny Hartenstein, is going to relocate to the wing. Hart with a beautiful pass, and look what that creates. And by the way, if he didn't want to shoot that, he had RJ Barrett for a corner 3. And it's so simple, but all of that is created because what Miami's basically doing here is 2 on the ball. So that Lowry has to guard 2 men. Now, honestly, in this scenario, Lowry was probably over-aggressive because based on where Brunson is, based on where these Heat guys are, they probably could have handled the Julius drive without him. But it's the same concept, right? Lowry jumps out with a lot of aggression. Okay, well, just take the open man. Simple. And there goes Josh Hart, creates that beautiful wing 3 that Brunson knocks down. All right. Hey, Sean, what's cooking, bud? Would you rather Josh shoot those from the corner or drive like he did? I think it's got to be a mix. That one, if we go back, and it's a very good question, and he certainly passes up his share. We know that Josh Hart. It's interesting because I'm not sure he wanted to shoot this based on watch him throughout this possession here. Like, unless he thinks he's going to have a passing angle here, which would be very unlikely. Now, what it could have been, I think he might have been anticipating the pocket pass to Hartenstein, in which case Bam would have had to come up and he would have backdoored it for a layup. That's what I think he's seeing here, which is why he's kind of creeping in. See that? Once the pass goes to Julius, he needs to be in that corner. That's where the pass is. And I wonder if because he's kind of backing into it, if the shot was a bit less comfortable. And Lowry does a decent job of getting out there. But I think if Josh Hart has a baseline drive like this and it's this open, I have absolutely no issue. Again, 13 on the clock, you have plenty of time to create something else. I like the drive here, and obviously the results speak for themselves. It's a good question. Yeah, and look, Hart would make a couple when he needed to, so he's going to keep them respecting him, at least from the corner. Now, from the wing, I don't think they respect him. But I think kind of using this angle And this wing advantage that Miami is giving to exploit that, I think, is fine. And I think was effective in this game. All right, on to the last clip on this is going to be in the fourth quarter, 7:40 to go. Here we go. Okay. Brunson passed it early to RJ here. We go back to Brunson. Here comes the screen. Now Randall's got to clear to the corner. And he's sort of doing it very slowly. So again, the screen being set to the outside is going to try to draw the defenders. Brunson, interestingly, because Vincent kind of almost ices it, which means he's almost forcing Brunson to stay middle of the floor. He doesn't want him using the screen. Okay, well, Brunson's like, all right, so I'll dribble right at Caleb Martin. Again, look at Caleb Martin's eyes. All on Brunson, right? And RJ's in the seam. And again, now you got Duncan Robinson. If RJ hits that seam, Grimes in the corner. And RJ's doing this so well, and that's really been for me a massive growth from him. Like the way he's just attacking this seam with such aggression and speed so that Martin can't recover before he's already in the seam, forcing Duncan Robinson to come up. Now he could have gone to Grimes, but Robinson kind of backed away, and I think RJ felt that and sensed that he might have another option here. And to, I think it was Ryan's point before, well, maybe it wasn't Ryan. I don't remember who it was, talking about who should start or who's more effective in this role. Well, this is a play that Mitchell Robinson can't make, right? This floater provides kind of an interesting type of spacing to the Knicks offense that they don't otherwise have, right? So he hits the seam. Bam comes over to help. Robinson tries to back away. It's pretty good defense by the Heat and recovery, and a really good job by RJ to find the one person abandoned here because Vincent's not going to leave Brunson right in the soft spot of the zone, and Hartenstein finishes. So you see just that hitting that gap, right? Brunson drawing it with the screen, hitting the gap, finding that seam opens up different options for the Knicks, whether it's the corner, whether it's just a floater for RJ like the first clip, whether it's Randall's drive and finding the center underneath for a dunk, or whether it's finding our center here, Hartenstein, for a floater. That's how the Knicks attacked the zone and found some success. That's the first kind of subject I wanted to cover. And before we move to the defensive end, any questions? How similar do you think the Heat view Hart as we did Okoro when planning their defense? Of course, minus the offensive rebounds. I think they see it very, very similarly. In fact, there was a play in game one, right? The Knicks were helping off the strong side corner. Even right, so like I can kind of show you with my arrow here on the screen, right? So let me move this back. Hold on, to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. Yeah. So in this scenario right here, imagine it was a man defense, right? So Duncan Robinson would actually be guarding Grimes in the corner instead of kind of spaced between here. So Robinson on Grimes. Generally speaking, defenses don't help off the strong side corner. They'll bring the help from the weak side, meaning, right, the side where the ball is not the weak side. RJ drives here. Generally speaking, Duncan Robinson would stay on Grimes and the help would come. That's what you would do against Quentin Grimes. The Knicks against Okoro were just helping on the drive from the strong side and daring Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland to pass the ball to the corner. They don't care. Even though he's one pass away, it's an easy pass. They were like, have fun with it. So in game one, the Heat Kyle Lowry was guarding Josh Hart and abandoned the strong side corner and allowed the Hart three, which he missed. It was in the fourth quarter, actually. So yes, the answer is yes. They are treating them similarly. Now that said, now that Josh Hart's made a couple in a clutch moment, do they stay with that? I don't think they're going to play as much zone in game three. Having Jimmy Butler back, who's another great man defender, I think, and some of the success that Knicks had generally, I think will pull them away from the zone a bit. I think they'll still show some of it, but I don't think it'll be as much as they did in game two. But you do hope that the shots that RJ and Hart made in this game make them think twice about how much help they're offering from those two guys. I'm glad you're enjoying, Kev. Thanks, me too. Kevin Danishevsky, I'm curious, do you think the Knicks' consolidation problem is affecting players' play? For instance, it feels like on a more top-heavy team, Quentin Grimes would get more volume, would probably benefit from more. On a more top-heavy team. I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think in terms of usage, the Knicks are a top-heavy team. I'm not sure it's that different from teams that have like more quote-unquote superstars. I think the fact that you have Brunson, Randall, and RJ soaking up a ton of usage is similar to how Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday soak up a lot of usage. Like it's hard for guys to get consistent shots in consistent places. The Bucks, for example, like Grayson Allen gets probably similar looks to Quentin Grimes. I don't know, shots per minute, how it measures up. I think that at times the Knicks are so isolation heavy that their ancillary players get less looks than they should, and less movement than they should. And I do think that affects them. And Grimes, I do think, is affected by that. But I'm not sure it's a top heavy issue as much as it's the way the Knicks play. Right, but you have a lot of guys competing for limited spots. That's true. That's true. I think Grimes has look. It's a larger question than for a Game 2 film session, but I'm happy to answer it or give my opinion on it anyway. I think it is true that the Knicks role players. First of all, there's a lot of competition for playing time, especially at the wing spot with Quickly, RJ, and Grimes, and that was always and Josh Hart, and that was especially going to become a thing. We all knew it when we traded for Josh Hart. I think everyone handled it pretty well. I think for all the concerns, and they're fair. I think all these guys have had great stretches second half of the season or post trade deadline. But it gets harder in the playoffs. Josh Hart is going to get a lot of the minutes, and Grimes obviously now seemingly out of the starting lineup. But yeah, of course, it's going to be a bit harder for him to get in a rhythm. But I do think he's gotten some looks. I think he's got to start making them. I said it about Quickly. We can talk about the fact that they're not in rhythm because they're not playing as much or not as involved. And I think it's generally true that in the playoffs, your higher usage players have the ball even more than they do in the regular season. I think that's how most teams operate. So it's a bit harder for guys like Quickly, Grimes, to really find their games. At the same time, it's the playoffs, so you have to. It is what it is. And I think the Knicks are trying to get Quickly some more on-ball reps. I thought in Game 2 it was definitely more than Game 1. Grimes is a different kind of player and just has to kind of wait for it no matter when he's playing and with whom he's playing. And he's shown the ability to knock down shots when given the opportunities. And I think he has to. It's like telling a guy to make shots is kind of silly, but it's just the case. He's got to make more shots and help this team. So a little bit of both, I think, I guess, is what I'm settling at. Hope that answers or somewhat responds to your question, Kevin. All right. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Okay. So we're going back to the first quarter. 7:32 to go. On rewatch, I have to say, I thought the Knicks defense was pretty decent. I thought it was good. I thought Miami made a lot of tough shots in this game. And I think the final score kind of reflected that. I mean, Miami had some success. I think Brunson in particular had some struggles. But overall, I thought they did a decent job. Here's where I really need some cleanup from our basketball team. And it's making it hard on ourselves because we're not switching when there's obvious times to switch and just make it easier. Especially in a game without Jimmy Butler, where I'm not that worried about the one-on-one matchups. I understand you don't want to switch Jalen Brunson out to Jimmy Butler, but Gabe Vincent, I don't know. I don't care that much. Like, let's see what he can do. So here we have Josh Hart's on Vincent and Brunson's on Max Strus. And as they did all game, they're going to bring Jalen Brunson into the action. Now, they don't do it quite like the Cavs did it because Miami has a more sophisticated and complex offense than the Cavs do. Partially because they have to, because their talent isn't as good. And the Cavs can just like run pick and rolls generally until they met the Knicks in the playoffs. They can run a gazillion pick and rolls for Garland and for Mitchell and get pretty good offense out of it. Now, Miami doesn't have that type of top-end talent, especially with their ball handlers, and so they run a much more interesting, complex offense. Now, I think Cleveland probably can learn from Miami, and I think they need to add some complexity to their offense. I think that was a lesson that should be learned. But anyway, usually what Cleveland would do is like someone would be handling the ball on top of the arc, probably Donovan Mitchell or Garland, and whoever Brunson was guarding would be like, all right, come on up and screen for us, and like the whole Knicks team could see what was happening and plan for it. Miami's a bit more spontaneous, right? And so like side pick and roll, Strus is coming down. You know what? Let me just go set a side pick and roll here. There's an empty corner, which makes it a bit harder to guard on the weak side. And like, fine. We have Bam that's kind of also setting a screen, so it's almost like a double screen here or a drag. Yep, he comes in there. Now, I don't know why we're making this so difficult. You know Strus is going to pop and Bam's going to roll, right? That's obvious. Watch what Brunson does. He's going to try to show on Vincent as Bam's going to roll out of the picture and recover to Strus. Now, let me ask you this. Are you that scared of Gabe Vincent on Jalen Brunson that you can't just switch so that Brunson's guarding Vincent and Hart's guarding Strus and we don't put ourselves in rotation for no reason? Because this, while it's a good recovery by Brunson and a contest, that's the shot I don't want to give up. Like Vincent isolation on Brunson maybe gets a tough 2, has to take a step back to, if they want to isolate him. Like that I can live with, but like you're basically conceding this 3 because you're refusing to switch Brunson onto a matchup that I'm just not that uncomfortable with. Like Vincent's not the fastest guy in the world. He's a strong dude. He's a pretty good shot maker. But to me, that's a shot I'm more concerned about than whatever shot Vincent's going to create in that one-on-one matchup. What do you guys think? What's up, Asian? Welcome. Oh, I missed a couple of messages here. Let's see. Ryan says, I do think Grimes has not been benefiting from RJ's rise. Josh Hart is always going to be the second wing. I hear, but Grimes had some great games with Hart. I think Grimes should start. I think that ship has probably sailed. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Tibbs is now going to settle with Hart in the starting lineup. But I also think that he might have found some value with Grimes in the fourth quarter and recognized the importance of Grimes in this series, both as a point of attack defender and as a shooter and a spacer. Even though he hasn't made shots, I think he's respected differently than the other Knicks. And so Grimes is going to get some opportunities here. He's just got to make his shots. Ben Kim Gervey says, I'm concerned that the swap of Grimes-Hart has changed the feel and frenzy of the second unit. I love that point. I made that point. Maybe I texted John and Andrew about this. I made it somewhere today. I think that second unit, like Quickly and Obi, have always been at their best with a veteran presence who pushes the pace. And that was Derrick Rose in their first year when they were one of the best bench units in the league. And that was Josh Hart this year when they got him, who transformed their second unit again into one of the best second units in the league. And I think removing Grimes from the starting lineup, we've talked a lot about how that affects the starting lineup and the spacing. We haven't talked as much, to your point, about how it's affected Quickly and Obi. And I do think it has. I think Hart gives them a jolt and the rebounding help that he provides and the veteran presence that he provides because those guys are just a bit jumpy. And Grimes is now another kind of jumpy young player that you're putting with Obi and Quickly. I think that all has affected the second unit's play, and perhaps it's an unintended consequence of starting Josh Hart. And it's another reason why I personally, again, would start Grimes, although I don't think it's going to happen. Wait, you couldn't hear me, Ray? I hope not. Sorry, I think everyone can hear me. That would be so awkward if I'm talking to myself. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Agreed. Good. Okay, I have agreement. I noticed that too, and it drove me nuts. Good. Haitian says agreed. Kevin says agreed. All right, good. We're on the same page, fellas. Sean says, does Tibbs think so? I don't know what that's referring to exactly. I imagine it's like, is he scared of the Vincent matchup? And he might be. I think it's dumb. Alex, this is an awesome way to go over film. I'm having a lot of fun, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. What is the software you're using? We can talk about that offline. We can't be afraid of Gabe Vincent. Listen, I've gained a lot of respect for Gabe Vincent. The guy's a dog, and he's a shot maker. Sometimes they played good defense on him, made shots anyway. And that is what it is. But to me, it's like, don't give the Miami this easy stuff. Like, force them to be impressive. Force them to make shots over you, especially if it's not Jimmy Butler. Sean, I said it on the postgame. Oh, great. I can't remember what I said anymore. Ryan, I'm happy to take questions on other playoff games later. Good. I'm glad everyone can hear me. Okay. Does Gabe Vincent have some FEV? Not all short, strong point guards are the same, Kevin. But yeah, I would say they do have a little bit of the same game because they bump you off with their bodies and they make those step backs and they're tough and they don't care and they're not scared of anybody. I definitely see a little bit of FEV in Vincent, just not as good. All right, can we move on? Let's move off to defense, shall we? We already did. Sorry, we already did one clip of defense. All right, second clip. Here we go. 40 seconds left in the first quarter. All right. Is this right? Yeah. All right, let's see what happens here. Okay. This was an interesting one. So Quickly's guarding Gabe Vincent coming down the floor. And Quentin Grimes is guarding Lowry. Now, my question to Quentin Grimes is this is what's called top locking. Right? So you're playing the high side. You're basically saying, Lowry, I dare you to cut back door on me. I'm trying to deny a Lowry coming off a pin down or trying to come get the ball. I'm basically in denial mode. And I just don't really know why we're doing that. Like Kyle Lowry? Now, if you want to do it to Duncan Robinson and Max Strus, who are like movement shooters, who you don't want to be able to come off a dribble handoff, that I get. Kyle Lowry? Not anymore. He's played well in this series. He's tough. He does a lot of little things. I'm not like terrified of a Kyle Lowry off the move, like movement threes. So I just question this positioning. I don't know why we're doing this. You can imagine if Grimes is behind Lowry and Lowry's going to screen for Vincent. Again, it would just be an easy switch. Do I care if Grimes is on Vincent and Quickly's on Lowry? No, but because Grimes is top blocking, so Larry's just going to sit because he knows that if I screen for Vincent now, there's going to be nobody helping because Grimes is in bad position. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So it ends up serving as Grimes screening his own man, which allows Vincent to get straight into the lane. Obi has to come over and help off the corner, which he did his job. But obviously that's going to leave the corner shooter, Highsmith, wide open. And he actually makes this shot. I don't think Highsmith's really an NBA player, but he did make this corner three, and you don't want to give up wide open corner threes to anybody. Now, one question might be, wait a second, on this rotation, isn't it RJ's job to rotate to the corner? Because once Obi helps, RJ has to what's called split the difference between Highsmith and Robinson. Like he should be stationed here to be able to guard the corner. The answer is probably, however, when you're guarding Duncan Robinson, your job is to not let Duncan Robinson shoot. So I think RJ is kind of almost understandably, especially when the other guy is Haywood Highsmith, is just saying, I'm going to take away Robinson's three. However, he should be in a bit better position here. Now, the question is, if the pass was made to the corner and RJ was in better position, to what extent do you close out to Highsmith and allow the swing pass to Robinson? Do you trust Hartenstein to now rotate all the way over? That's why I'm saying I don't even necessarily think RJ did such a bad job or made a bad decision here. I'm not sure he was aware of the whole thing, to be honest, but even if he was, I don't think he necessarily made the wrong decision here. I think the whole problem starts because you have two Knicks running into each other because for some reason Quentin Grimes was top blocking Kyle Lowry, which allowed an easy drive for Vincent and a corner kick and shot. By the way, good effort by Hartenstein to get out on that, even though it wasn't his rotation. So yeah, again, just like an initial decision in terms of how you're covering these guard-to-guard screen roles that I think the Knicks paid for there in a very tough spot to end the quarter. You don't like to give up points like that. Any questions on that? Since the game's on Shabbat, do you hide yourself from the result and watch later Saturday night? It's hard to hide from the result. People know. People have ways. So I usually find out what happened in the game, but I don't watch any of it. To answer that question, Ray, I always knew Knicks fans are the smartest in the NBA, and this shows it. Being able to keep up with the film master B is impressive. It truly is. We have a brilliant fan base, and it's awesome to be able to engage. Ben Kim says, Miami is awesome at finding the lost boys, those guys who would be out of the league unless they sell their souls. Oh, that's not a question. That's just a point, and true. Absolutely. Ryan says, I really loved how Tom Piccolo put it on the pod today. Spoelstra is so good he can maximize the strength and minimize the weaknesses of players that otherwise wouldn't be nearly as impactful. That is a sign of a great coach. Absolutely. Okay, Ben can make another point about Spoelstra, well-deserved. Ryan says, Benjy, I feel like as a general rule, the Knicks should not play drop on any PNRs that don't involve Butler. To what extent do you agree with that? I'm sure there are some scenarios I'm missing where drop is advantageous. Great question, Ryan. I think drop defense gets a bad rep, and I'll tell you why. I think everyone always complains about drop coverage, and I think the reason for that is because the most obvious and quickest shot is conceded with drop coverage, which is a pull-up three. Now, depending on the person shooting a pull-up three, and there are exceptions to this rule, pull-up threes with a rear contest are not that high percentage. Like whether it's Gabe Vincent or anybody else. And Gabe Vincent made a couple in this game. But what you have to understand is if you don't play drop coverage and you're at the level of the screen, what that allows is passes into the pocket, potentially cross-court passes, because the help has to come from somewhere. When you play drop, you're able to limit the amount of help you have to send from elsewhere to guard the roller. And let me know if this makes sense. And I can't necessarily show it to you from this clip. I wish I could. Let's see. Because there's no 5 screening in this particular clip. And I could find one maybe later to show you. But the idea being that you basically are allowed to play it 2-on-2 and not involve your other help defenders. And if the worst case scenario, if the rear contest isn't quite good enough or the guy doesn't get around the screen, is that you concede a pull-up three. It looks bad because like that's the tip of the iceberg. It's the first thing that you see is a pull-up three is conceded. At the same time, down the line of a possession, when you don't play drop, there are more damaging results. And I think we are less focused on that, right? It's just one of these biases because it's what we see. And I think that's why drop coverage is still utilized so frequently in the NBA, even though it seems like it's always criticized, because you're still limiting some of the downstream effects of taking your center out of the play at the initial point of the screen. Hey, Jessica, welcome. Ryan says, following so far, great. So drop is a trade-off of a dangerous but lower percentage shot instead of a higher probability but slightly less dangerous shot at the rim. That's definitely part of it, yes. That is exactly what I'm trying to convey. The other part of it is that once you bring your center out to the top at the point of attack, you're potentially losing his rim protection on a swing scenario. And for the Knicks, look, rim protection has always been the name of the game. They want their centers in the paint for whatever drive. They're the firefighters, right? Anyone can get beat on the perimeter, but at least our centers are there. You take them at a drop, they're farther away, it's harder to recover, you get less help at the rim. That's all part of the calculus. It's all part of the calculus, but I think that's kind of what the drop coverage is designed to do. Oh no, Jessica, drop coverage is the Celtics played drop coverage against Steph Curry last year in the finals. Now that was criticized pretty heavily. Because that's Steph Curry, right? That's what I was saying. There's certain exceptions. Damian Lillard. You're not going to concede pull-up threes from Damian Lillard or Steph Curry. Even Fred VanVleet is phenomenal pull-up three-point shooter. Like there are certain guys that you just can't live with it, but nobody on the Heat. There's one guy on the Heat who I might be very concerned about in terms of drop, and that person is Tyler Hero, who's a really good shot maker off the dribble, but we don't have to worry about him. Kevin says, was trying to explain why Julius is so bad in drop to my roommate, but couldn't articulate myself. Can you help? Julius is bad in drop because, A, he doesn't put his hands up. So, like, even if a guy's in drop, I would like to contest a jumper that you're conceding, and Julius doesn't do that. Number two, the advantage of drop is if the ball handler, one of the advantages of drop is if the ball handler continues to go at the rim, well, at least my center can protect it, right? Well, if it's Julius Randle, he's not that good a rim protector, so you're not gaining that much. Whether it's Julius protecting the rim or someone rotating from the weak side protecting the rim, I'm not sure what you gain. Like, the point of drop is to have my center protecting the rim, but Julius isn't a center, and he's not very good at protecting the rim. And what he is good at, sometimes, is being active and switching and being a pain in the butt and being physical. And, like, drop just doesn't cater to any of those strengths. And actually, I think plays into his weaknesses and his tendencies to be lazy at times defensively. Right, that's the whole thread I put out about inertia with Julius. It's like he seems to be governed by that principle. If you let him rest, he's going to rest. If you get him in action, he's going to continue to stay in action. I just think all of that plays in. Ryan, what do you think is the best way to defend a Butler-Bam side pick and roll? I personally feel like that's their best action if they have three other people who can swing the ball, shoot threes off the catch. Well, it's a great question, something the Knicks have to deal with in Game 1 and we'll probably have to deal with in Game 3. I wish I would have the Game 1 clip pulled up here. I don't know, maybe a way to do this in the future is to like have at least a few like mailbag opportunities that I'll have clips to be able to address specific questions you guys have, as opposed to like having my own pre-prepared topics or maybe some combination of both. We're feeling it out and we'll try to improve this as we go, but it's like awesome to even be able to do this at all and have like live interaction about film. It's really cool, but we'll think about that. It might be great. I thought the Knicks didn't go under enough screens with Jimmy and make him into a jump shooter or force him to try to take jump shots. I think that's one way to kind of negate that action is just to go under the Bam screen. I think they should do that more. Depending on who's guarding the action, it's usually going to be the Knicks center, who I don't necessarily want to switch onto Butler. But if it's a late clock scenario, I might be okay with that. Let's see what Butler can do against Mitch in a late clock scenario. Again, the goal is to try to force Jimmy into jumpers. Make him make jumpers. But how the Knicks will traditionally defend it is in drop, right? Where Josh Hart's going to chase over the screen. And the key for Mitch, which he didn't do so well in either game, really, is to contain it. You can't let Jimmy get past you as a drop defender. You have to stay in front and continue to drop and force him to pull up and let Josh Hart get around and contest the pull up because Josh Hart's really good at that. Stay physical and stay attached. But Mitch can't let him get downhill so that a whole defense now breaks down and now Jimmy can either get fouled or find shooters and all the other things he does. So I think you mix up your coverages against someone like Jimmy, but try to mix in some unders. You're going to play mostly drop and even some late clock switches. I think all are fine, and you live with them if you're disciplined and you do it right. GMAC, Duncan. I think you're asking if we're worried about Duncan as a ball handler in a drop scenario. That's your question, right? That's your question. I'm going to assume that's your question. Yes, in fact, Duncan Robinson made a three like that on Jalen Brunson. But that's honestly most of Duncan Robinson's threes are coming off of pin downs, flying off from like floppy actions, less so as a ball handler and pick and roll. It's not really his strength. Like he doesn't put the ball down that much at all. He did make one in this game on a drop scenario. And so did Vincent. And I just wouldn't necessarily overreact because I still think some of the best shots Miami created in this game were when our centers did get all the way out and they hit Bam in the pocket. And Bam's really good in that pocket at finding the better shots, which are the catch and shoot corner threes that we conceded a bunch of, right? And so it's a push and pull. I'm not sure I'm that worried about Strus or Duncan Robinson as pick and roll ball handlers in a drop. I think our defenders, Brunson in particular, did a poor job on that specific play, and I don't have the timestamp for it, but you can watch it. The three that Duncan Robinson made where Brunson was on him and kind of when he chased over, he almost fell with inside the arc and let Duncan pull up. Like you have to pursue over the top and force Duncan Robinson to dribble the ball inside the arc, right? That's the goal from the point of attack defender perspective. And at times the Knicks weren't quite good enough doing that. So it's not just a drop defender, right? Even if you're dropping, you're not just conceding a wide open pull-up three. The goal is for the guy to get over the top of the screen and force the ball handler inside. Of course, Bam Adebayo being an illegal screener chronically makes that a little bit harder. But I do think that's the concept. Sean says, thought the same thing, Andrew. Sean says it was George. Oh, yeah. George Niang and drop. My dear friend George. We talk on Twitter, he and I. Okay. Jessica, Ben, what did we do to beat this team 3-1 during the regular season that we are not doing now, and vice versa for Miami? Oh, my. That's a very broad question. I'm trying to go back to my keys of the series. It's also hard because we didn't have Julius game 1 and didn't have Jimmy game 2. So these games were so different. It's hard to have like macro ideas about the series at this point. And I don't mean to cop out of this answer because it's an important question. I just honestly don't think we have the necessary evidence yet of like what trends are going on, because game 2 and both games were so weird when you're missing the main guy or the 1A, right? So I don't necessarily have an answer to that question. I think the Knicks have done generally a good job defensively, other than the things that I'm getting to, which is just like switch communication and making switches and not making it harder for yourself. But Jessica, I'm going to stay with that question like as the series goes on, and we'll go over it as we go forward. No, Ryan, I think it was more than that. It's more than just like the Heat didn't show up. Those games were good games, and I think the Knicks did a lot of things well. But all right, let's see. Ben Kim, I know you didn't mean me, Ben, but I looked at this last week, and we had at least one player hitting threes and at least one with a high effective field goal percentage. We hit shots, John. What are you sorry about, Jessica? Don't be sorry. I'm not copping out of the answer. It's a really important question. I don't think we quite have the answers yet with the way the series has gone. Especially game 2 was weird because Miami knew that they were going to have to hit a gazillion threes. They were missing one of their best players on both ends, right? So I think a lot of the zone defense concepts were because they were missing Jimmy. So it's just a weird game. I don't think it necessarily applies to what the rest of the series is going to look like. All right, moving on. Let's get to the rest of these clips. Not too many more, and we will call it a night. So, moving to second quarter, and this play was annoying. End of the second quarter. You guys remember the play. It was a Kevin Love 3 that got us all very tense and nervous going into halftime. Let's see. Let's find it. Here we go. All right. Down the floor comes Kyle Lowry. 17 seconds, tie, ball game. Let's get in there tied, right? Heat seems to be standing around. Bam's like, what are we running? Kyle's like, I'll tell you. So Bam pops. It's like a classic, what's called a delay action is when your big comes out and can run dribble handoffs either way. And this very innocent little pin down sort of screen comes from Kevin Love down for Strus, who Brunson's guarding. Now, again, this is what we talked about before, the top lock on Strus, which in this scenario on Strus I like because I don't want Strus coming to be able to fly off this dribble handoff and be able to pull right into a 3. I like denying him that and forcing him to do something else. Top locking on him and Duncan Robinson I'm fine with. Kyle Lowry, not so much. Okay, so we're top locking. But Brunson feels the screen coming. He starts trying to figure out where he's going. Josh Hart in a good position here right now to figure out what's next. Now watch what happens. Strus feels that coverage and just turns and screens Hart. Jalen Brunson is still looking at Strus. But look where Bam Adebayo is. So Brunson totally lost track of where the ball was. Well, hello. Look what opens up here. Brunson never sees it. Now Hart has to recover. Now what could we have done? There's 7 seconds on the clock, right? It's important to note. 10 seconds left in the half. Brunson feels this screen. What you could have done is just been like, oh, you're screening me? Well, you know what? Now I'm guarding you, Kevin Love. What are we scared of with Kevin Love? Do we think that with 6 seconds on the clock, that if Strus comes out, Kevin Love's going to go into the post on Brunson? We haven't seen Kevin Love post up one time in this series. He's just shooting threes out there. I have no problem and makes it less complicated if Brunson just feels this screen, turns in, and says, now I'm guarding you. Then Josh Hart could guard Strus. And that's the end of the advantage. Instead, look what this opens up. I mean, that's crazy. From that little innocent nothing pin down, we create an easy pass and wide open three for an excellent shooter. Can't have it. Right? So I feel like that's another scenario where we're just overcomplicating things. I understand, like, theoretically you don't want Brunson switching on to Love because Love is a big man. But frankly, the way Love is used now, he's not a big man. He's basically just a shooter. He's a wing. And I'm not worried about an offensive rebound this late in the half, and I'm not worried about him posting up anymore. There's not enough time, and I don't think he wants to do it anyway. It's not really what Miami wants to do. So to me, it's just like, especially with Brunson in the action, they're like very worried about Brunson switching onto guys, and we're causing ourselves problems that don't really exist. Just switch it and make someone make a shot over you. Let's see. Kevin Love loves the smoke. Yeah, he didn't shoot very well, though, in that game, which was good. Yep, Ryan says switch to PNR. It's not a PNR. This was an off-ball screen, but yes, I think they should have switched it. Excuse me. Ray says, to me, the playoffs are always different, more intense, higher quality play, more consistently. Not the same as regular season games because there are 82 of them, so a short 7-game series is more urgency, and a longer season players always adjust across all sports. You can find all true points. I can almost hear Clyde saying, see the ball, see your man. Yes. And by the way, I was thinking about clipping all the Obi issues in this series so far, which I might do in a thread instead of here. Obi is having a lot of defensive trouble and specifically seeing the ball and seeing his man. Busy. Yep, absolutely. Just switch it. Kevin says, yeah, I was wondering what happened with this play. I also wonder if there's anything Randall can do when that play breaks down. All right, let's see what's Julius up to. I didn't notice that, Kevin, so let's take a peek. Our friend Julius guarding Bam with a ton of urgency and activity here, as you can see, as we can always expect from our friend Ju. So you know what? It's a great point, Kevin, and I'm glad. And sometimes my expectations of Julius on defense, I give him a pass because I'm just kind of used to it. This is terrible defense. You know why? Bam, in a delay action, wants to pass. And as a defender of a guy who wants to pass, you know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to pressure the basketball. And Julius is more than capable of pressuring Bam Adebayo out there and making this pass difficult. And it's not something I even noticed because I'm focused on the off-ball action, but you are 100% right. That this is a very poor job by Julius Randle making this at all difficult for Bam instead of giving him every option that he wants. I mean, that's horrendous. Great point. Thanks, Kevin. That's a really good point. All right, on to the next clip. We have 2 more to go, guys. So we're doing great here. Third quarter, 11:15 to go. So right at the start of the second half. Let's see. All right, here we are. So this is funny. Watch this. Keep the play at the end of the first half in mind. Same action to start the second. Bam on the delay action, right? Who are the 2 guys weak side? Brunson on Strus. Now it's not Hart on Love on the it's Julius on Love because if you recall at the end of the first half, both our centers were out with foul trouble, so Julius was at the 5, so he was guarding Bam. Right now we have Mitch back in the game. He's guarding Bam. Julius on Love. What do you know? The Heat run the same exact action. Now, two things to notice. One, for whatever reason here, maybe because of what happened on the last play, Brunson not top blocking Strus. He's behind him. Which, I don't know. I'm okay with him mixing that up. He doesn't have to top block every time. I think this is okay. But what Strus is going to do is he's just going to screen off Julius. Now, at least Brunson this time kind of figures it out, gets a contest up, which is, that's a legit contest and a tougher shot because of it, and he does force the miss. But it's interesting that Miami went right back to the same play that closed the first, and the Knicks, I guess, reacted a little bit better, and it's kind of the switch I was looking for. Maybe I'd like Brunson to be a bit more aggressive with it, but it's cool to see kind of the them going back to the well and how the Knicks reacted at least a little bit better this time. Any questions here? Let's see. Busy, do you think they were sticking to the game plan of when Jimmy is in the game? That's interesting. In terms of trying to keep it consistent, I don't think that's what you do when the next game is on like 4 days later, which is this crazy break that we have here. I think game to game you adjust based on the personnel. At least I would. That's not to say that you're wrong. Maybe that's what Tibbs was thinking. I think Tibbs sometimes is overprotective of Brunson defensively. And I don't think it helps because I think what ends up happening is Brunson has to recover instead of just guarding a man. And I don't think it always works. I don't think that's what he was doing, Busy, but that's an interesting theory. All right. Hedge recover. Yeah, maybe that's what Brunson was doing here, was he was going to eventually recover, but if you do that, if you try to hedge and recover, then you might be able to slip it to Strus on the recovery, so that's pretty dangerous. I think I'd just rather switch it and see what Kevin Love can do with 13 on the clock and an isolation on Jalen Brunson. I don't know. Are you guys worried about that? I have trouble. I don't think Miami even wants to go to that. They treat him, Kevin Love at this point, as a shooter and a rebounder. It's just really the only two things that he does. I wonder if Brunson's injury affected the coverage there. Always a fair question. I don't know. It's a fair question. He wasn't healthy, clearly. Ray says, I would love to understand how contests alter 3-point percentage. I will say, even just based on the tracking data that we have, which is very flawed, but gives you a general sense, it's definitely the case that the tighter the contest, in terms of how close the defender is to the shooter, the lower the percentage. We do have evidence of that even on our flawed data, but it's such a large body of shots that we track that I think we can confidently say that it is the case. Now, to what extent and what's the percentage each time someone contests, and if someone like Jalen Brunson contests who's short as opposed to a taller player, I don't think we necessarily have all of that data, but I think it's self-explanatory. And if you've played the game, it's just true, right? You feel, to some extent, you feel a contest, and you're more likely to miss. You have to alter your shot trajectory. You have to alter your form. You have to get it off quicker, all the stuff that goes into a shot. When you have a tight contest, I think it just changes it and lowers the percentage. I think it's just the case, right? All right. And now let's go to one more clip. Fourth quarter. As I was going through the game film, I was actually more impressed with the Knicks defense than I was when I was watching it live. I thought I'd have more clips to it's a lot of tough shot making in this game by the Heat. And volume 3-point shooting, which can go either way. Okay. Wait a minute. This is an offensive. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we got 4 minutes to go in this ball game. Knicks are up 3. And let's watch what happens here. So we have Quentin Grimes in the game on Gabe Vincent. And with no Strus in the game, we have Brunson now on Kyle Lowry, Josh Hart on Martin, Julius out on Love. Now the Miami's going to run again is this Lowry to Grimes screen. Now we talked earlier about when Grimes was guarding Lowry and quickly was on Vincent, how for whatever reason Grimes was top blocking Lowry. So we're not making that mistake here. Brunson's at least behind him. And they're going to set this guard-to-guard screen to bring, guess who, Jalen Brunson into the action. Again, it's Gabe Vincent. And again, the Knicks are terrified of this for whatever reason, but look what happens when you're terrified of it. So Brunson's he's in good position here. You're telling me that Jalen Brunson, right here, can't guard Gabe Vincent sufficiently that I can just switch Grimes onto Kyle Lowry. I have Josh Hart here guarding someone who shot well in that game, but I'm generally like okay helping off of, and Caleb Martin behind. Mitch should be able to get in the picture if Vincent tries to drive because he's guarding Bam, who's not like a three-point threat. I'm just not panicking. But the Knicks are so scared of this matchup that Grimes is going to stay and expect Brunson to recover to Kyle Lowry. Vincent sees that right away. That's 2 on the ball. Advantage is created. Bam's here to screen. Now watch what happens here. It's kind of a chain reaction, but you'll see the shot that's created is all the result of this initial decision. So once Lowry catches Mitch now, he's open for 3. Mitch has to close to Lowry. He's the only one in the picture. Well, what happens then? Bam is able to slip past Mitch. Now you got that situation with Bam in the pocket, which worries you, right? Again, one of the interesting things about the Cleveland series was Mobley and Allen's inability to really hurt us from this pocket in the middle of the floor. Bam's a different animal, man. Bam will hurt you. He can finish and he can find shooters. He's a really good passer. Well, now you're in trouble. You got 2 shooters in the corners. It's a 3-on-2 scenario. We have 3 defenders here out of the picture because these 2 guys felt like they couldn't switch. Now we're in a pickle. Both our defenders help really hard because it's a dunk, and it's hard when it's middle of the floor. Normally, only the weak side would recover, right? Would drop. If the ball was, let's say, over here, then it would only be Hart's drop, and Randall could stay on the corner. But because this slices you right through the middle, well, who's the weak side? There is no weak side. It's the middle of the floor. So both guys react. Both corners are. Bam has his choice. Now he found the better shooter in Kevin Love. These are the shots you don't want, right? Like, these are the shots you really don't want to give up. I am so much less concerned with whatever Gabe Vincent can create one-on-one with Jalen Brunson than I am with this shot. And Lord help us, we got very lucky. Who knows how the game turns out if that goes in? He missed a wide-open corner 3. But I hope that it's become clear now how these decisions that you make, it's actually similar. It's the inverse of what we were talking on the offensive end, right? That advantage that you create with 2 on the ball in that zone defense that Miami was playing when they were zoning up on Brunson and playing that 1-1-3, and how we can attack from the wing. We found the soft spot, found the advantage, and from that wing position and attack, you can create all sorts of different kinds of offense, but all good looks, whether it's to the corner shooter, whether it's your own floater, whether it's to the big at the dunker spot, whether it's to the big in the floater range. The Knicks found different ways to attack it. Well, here, you're creating your own disadvantage by refusing to switch. You're opening up odd man rushes, odd man advantages by doing that. And the Heat were able to find all sorts of shots, whether it was the Strus slip and shot and 3, whether it was the Kevin Love shot at the end of the first half. And now here you see the chain reaction of eventually Bam gets that ball in the middle and finds a wide open corner shooter. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And to me, there's just less of a threat there one-on-one. And I think the Knicks should probably just allow Brunson to switch more and force Miami to shot make over us as opposed to get wide open looks on the backside. Any questions here? We're talking about shot probability. Okay, Ben Kim, do you think that given Obi struggles on D and need for more perimeter and POA defense, we'll see a deuce game? No. I don't think we'll see a deuce game without injury. And while I think that if anyone is at risk of losing his rotation spot in this series, it's Obi. My initial guess would be that we would just go to a 8-guy rotation, then seeing at least significant deuce minutes, like you might see like in that one Cleveland game late, like an end of a half or a couple possessions here or there just to spell somebody. But I don't think like a significant, like a 6 or 7 minute stretch of deuce. I don't see, unless there's another injury in the backcourt. But not impossible. And I think, look, I've said it all year. Anytime Deuce comes in the game, he contributes positively. I'm like not worried about it. If Deuce came in, I'd be happy. Like, guy can do what he does. Like, he'll guard at the point of attack. He'll be a monster. And he's been making shots more recently too. Like, I trust him. I don't think Tibbs is going to go that direction here. Busy, what's your thoughts on how they guarded Bam? I thought they respected him too much and need to invite him to take more mid-range shots, play his passing lanes, and protect him from driving. So in my preview, Busy, I argued the other side, and I do hear what you're saying. To me, and throughout the 4 games that the Knicks played, Bam had like 1 or 2 drives the entire time past Mitch or Ihart that resulted in points. Now in this game, he beat Mitch on that first drive, and Mitch fouled him. And then he beat Mitch again on the second one, but I thought Mitch got a pretty clean block on it. Bam is a weird player. He's a very explosive dunker on the catch, but he's not an explosive dunker on his drives. He's actually a pretty weak and soft finisher, I find, on his drives, and Mitch was able to get his hand on that shot. They called a foul on it. I like pressuring him, forcing him to try to put the ball on the floor. I think his mid-range shot is kind of his comfort zone, and you want to take him out of that. And I think more importantly, the tighter you are on him, the less he has those passing angles. You saw it with Julius there, as Kevin pointed out really, really smartly. If you give Bam space, he's a very good dribble handoff player and a very good passer. I like pressuring him and forcing him to make those moves. Hopefully Mitch is just a little bit more ready for them. I didn't think he did a great job staying in front, but I think he can. He showed over the course of the regular season he's capable of staying in front. And I'm just not that worried about Bam's one-on-one game. He's just limited in that area a bit. Ryan says, once Butler gets back, I think I generally support any game plan that relies on anyone besides Butler making a play on the ball. Yeah, but I argued after game 1, I thought they respected him too much. Because I think the Knicks have good defenders for him. And the way we guarded him was almost like, it was just a little, I thought we overreacted before he made us overreact. And we were opening up things on it. Similar to what I'm talking about here. Like sometimes you shoot yourself in the foot when you overreact to things or fear things instead of just like trusting your defense. And so I would err on the side of just letting Hart guard him one-on-one for the most part. Mix in your unders, as I talked about before, on a screen and roll game. Don't give him the easy stuff. That's what they failed to do in game 1. Was they gave him the backdoor cuts. They gave him offensive rebounds. They jumped at his pump fakes and fouled him. That's the stuff you take away. Make him a one-on-one scorer, and I think we'll be okay. All right, guys, this was amazing. I'm so happy we got to do this. I'm sorry I was a little bit late. We went over an hour, which is awesome. Your questions were amazing. We'll keep like kind of tightening up this format. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed. I had a blast, and looking forward to game 3. Hopefully we'll do it again after game 3 and kind of go over some of the film. Maybe we'll get some pre-prepared questions, and I'll be a little bit more prepared in terms of the format and being able to pull up the clips. But this was a blast. Thank you guys for coming out, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Let's go Knicks.